Hello, and welcome to the Allscripts Enterprise EHR connectivity demonstration to CareCenter MD using the HeartCentrix middleware connectivity solution. Here you see the login screen for the Allscripts Enterprise EHR, and in this case we're using Allscripts Enterprise EHR version 11.1.7 using the Unity UAI interface from Allscripts. So the first thing we're going to do is log in to the Allscripts EHR. And we're logging in right now as we speak. And as you can see right now, we already have a patient selected. But if you needed to go select a patient, you would go to the patient button on the left-hand side. And then you'd go under Select Patient, which brings up a Select Patient menu, and then I enter in the last name of Allscripts. And you can see there's a number of patients with the last name of Allscripts. I'm going to select Allison. And what that does is it selects that patient, provides all of her demographic information. Now, if we want to view diagnostic reports or perform diagnostic exams using CareCenter MD, we go down to what's called the Chart Viewer mode. So we hit Chart on the left-hand side there. And then we go over here and hit Chart Viewer. And then we select All by Now that you've selected the Chart Viewer mode for Allison Allscripts and can view all of her diagnostic exams, let's step through the procedure of either how to perform a diagnostic exam or how you can actually view and edit those reports using the HeartCentrix Viewer and Editor. And as you can see, down to the right-hand lower bottom part of the screen, there's a button called HeartCentrix. If you select that HeartCentrix button, it's going to load what's called a HeartCentrix work list dialog screen. And here you can see it right here. And it has a list of all the exams that HeartCentrix knows about for Allison Allscripts. For each exam, it lists its type of test or modality. It gives the date and time that the test was either performed or scheduled. And it provides a status, and there's really three different types of statuses that you can have. One is a request, or really an order for a procedure. One is unconfirmed, which means I've received the test back into HeartCentrix, but the test has not been overread. This is typically referred to as a preliminary report. And then finally, if the test says confirmed, it means that a physician or clinician actually overread that report and signed it off. So those are the three different types of test statuses that you can have. Now let's take a look at performing an ECG exam. So you go to the upper left hand corner, and under the ECG button there's a menu, and there's two entries. One is resting 12 and the other is request test. I'm going to demonstrate how to use request test first, but we're not actually going to perform the exam. Request test would be used in those cases where you simply want to place a request for a procedure, but you're going to perform that procedure at a later point in time. This would typically be used for, let's say, a cardiac science purpose-built device like a Burdick 8500 or an Atria 6100. So let's just show you how that's going to work, or how that would work. Select on Request Test, and it pops up this dialog that says, do you intend to take the test on the patient right now? And in many cases with a purpose-built device, there's maybe somebody else that's actually performing that test as opposed to the person actually placing the order. So what we're going to do is we're going to say no. We're not going to wait around. We just want to place the request. Somebody else is going to do it later on that, let's say an Atria 6100 or Burdick 8500, and then when they're done with that test, they'll send it back into HeartCentrix through and ultimately to the Allscripts EHR. So we're going to say no here, And what that's going to do is it's going to place a request for a procedure in the HeartCentrix work list. When that test is performed later and then sent in through HeartCentrix to Allscripts, it would automatically then, HeartCentrix would know it received a request for that test, and it would then change the status on that report from request to unconfirmed. Now, let's take a look at performing a test with CareCenter. And how you would do that is, again, ECG button, but now in this case, you're just going to click on resting 12. So let's do that right now. And as you can see, it's loading the CareCenter application, and it'll load up here in a minute and start scrolling the waveforms. And here you can see starting to scroll the ECG waveforms from the patient called Allison Allscripts. And you can see that by taking a look at the title bar in the CareCenter application. It has the device, the modality, a resting 12-lead ECG, has the medical record number, has the name of the patient and their date of birth. All of this information is inherited from the Allscripts EHR as part of requesting this ECG test. And the nice thing about using a PC-based application like CareCenter MD is you can actually operate and perform the exam all from the same desktop with a single sign-in. Now, let's take, now that we have good lead connectivity for this patient, let's collect 10 seconds of data for the resting 12-lead ECG. So we'll collect up to 10 seconds here, so we're counting down. And now here it's actually captured 10 seconds of a 12-lead resting ECG. Now there's a number of things as a clinician you do from within CareCenter prior to sending this report back to Allscripts via HeartCentrix. You can add some remarks. You can repeat the test. You could print it, let's say, to a known printer to the CareCenter application. You can go into a preview mode, and you could sign off on the test. If you're a physician that has those privileges, you can actually sign off on this report before sending it back to Allscripts. But in this case, we're just going to save the report, and by virtue of saving the report, you can see there's a little dialog that says I'm saving that report. And then once it then exits the CareCenter application, and now it pops up this HeartCentrix dialog, or this HeartCentrix work list. And what it's doing is this HeartCentrix is now processing that ECG report that was just sent from CareCenter. And it will then update the work list here in a second. And now you can see in the HeartCentrix work list, you can see now we have an unconfirmed report at 12:26 today on May 20th. And this is the report that we just acquired through CareCenter. Now, at this point, we have an unconfirmed or preliminary report. And in most cases, the technician that performed the test is not really the responsible party for reviewing the test. So this person will simply return out of the HeartCentrix dialog there and brings you back then to the chart viewer. Now I'm going to refresh the view here. And now you can see there's a number of entries today for May 20th. A couple of them are tests, a couple of them are orders. This is not a typical scenario where typically you'd only have, let's say, one ECG test per any given day for a patient. But this is just for purposes of demonstration. Now, the last entry in this list will now be the ECG that we just acquired. Now, if you're a referring physician or a clinician, you want to go into this patient and say, hey, was this test performed? This is the way you would do it, through the chart viewer. And you would click on this report, and what it's going to do is it's going to launch the Allscripts Scan Document Viewer application, which can display a PDF document of the report that we just took from CareCenter. And as you can see right here, we have what's called the unconfirmed or preliminary report for Allison Allscripts that was performed at 12:26 today. And you can take a look at this PDF document and review its report. So this is a way for any physician or clinician that can access Allscripts Enterprise to take a look at what's called a preliminary report. But what if you are a responsible party for overreading and providing physician comment and sign off on this report? How would I do that? Again, you would go down to the HeartCentrix button on the bottom of the page, click on it, and it's going to generate this work list just as it did before. And you're going to select that test, the one from 12/26 on May 20th. And how you do that is you can just double click on it, and what that will do is it will launch what's called the HeartCentrix viewer and editor for an ECG modality. Now, a couple of things about this presentation. First of all, patient demographic information is on the left-hand side of the screen. And you can take a look at the test date and time, the name of the patient, the date of birth, the gender, the race. All of this information is automatically inherited from the Allscripts EHR at the time that the Care Center application was launched. So, no need to then go rekey this information or be subject to, let's say, demographic errors that might lead to patient misidentification. The next section are what we call the global measurements, and again, these are the measurements that were acquired from the ECG report that we collected using the Care Center MD application. And you have the ability to edit some of these as well. The next section is the interpretation. And there's a number of things you can do in the interpretation window. The first thing you can do is say, I just really don't agree with this machine interpretation that came from Care Center, so I'm just going to delete it. And it's going to ask if you want to delete it. Now you can see that the window is blank. But let's say, the machine interpretation really was pretty close. I can actually undo that. And I'll take the machine interpretation and restore it back again. Now, some other things you can do is you can define user-defined acronyms and then use what's called the Show Acronym List, and you can select an acronym from there and apply it and close it, and now you can see we selected acute pericarditis, and now that shows up here in the interpretation window. Now, there's a number of users that would just rather use the keyboard as opposed to having the acronym menu list. If you know the abbreviation of the acronym, you can simply hit the / character followed by the abbreviation. In this case, /AFib expands to what's called atrial fibrillation. So we find many users that would rather just use keyboard shortcuts for acronyms. And you can also enter text as well. So I can say this test has been confirmed. Okay, so that's a little bit about how you can manage the interpretation window. Let's talk about the ECG waveforms with the associated test. As you can see right here, the current ECG is on the top, and if there is a first prior ECG exam, that will show up automatically right below the current ECG that we're reviewing. Now, a convenient way to take a look at comparing a current with a first prior exam is by hitting the Tile ECGs button. So I'm going to hit Tile ECGs, and then if I want to see the interpretation and global measurements with those ECGs, I'll hit the Interpretation button, and it'll automatically display that information to the right hand side. So now I have a presentation where I can take a look at my current ECG and compare it to the first prior. Now if you want to take a look at another prior ECG, let's say we're going to take a look at the oldest one back from July 30th of 2010. I'll take a look at the oldest ECG. You can do that as well. So now we're actually comparing the current with the oldest ECG in the system. Some other things that you can do with ECGs. You can show pacer spikes. You can hide or not hide the grid. If you want to change the rhythm lead setting, by default it's at 2, but let's say you want to change it to V2. Now you can see lead V2 now shows up for the current and the first prior ECGs. Let's say I want to take a look at not a 3x4 format, but let's say I want to see all 10 seconds of all 12 leads of ECG. I would go down and select 12 by 1. And now you can see all the leads lined up a full 10 seconds, and obviously there's not enough real estate to see all 12 leads in that, except if we turn the gain adjustment all the way down, let's say 25%, but you can see that that's not a very friendly display, so let's turn it back to 100%. And then you would use the scroll bar controls to the right hand side of the screen to pan through the different leads. And what the HeartCentrix viewer and editor, it'll make a best effort to compare the corresponding lead in the current test to the corresponding lead in the prior exam. So let's go back to our 3x4 format here. So we'll do that right now. And scroll back up. Let's say you wanted to use electronic calipers. So I'm going to do an interval here. Let's say it's called PR interval. And what I'm going to do is to actually use calipers. I'm going to zoom the display up a little bit here. I'm going to go to 200%. And now let's say I want to measure the PR interval. And there's two blue vertical lines. One is the left interval marker, and then the other is the right interval marker. I'm going to drag that across to the R wave there. And now I have a measurement of 169 milliseconds, and I can compare that to what the machine measured, which was 160 milliseconds. But anyway, the point is here is just trying to demonstrate how you would use the calipers for different types of interval and actually amplitude measurements as well. So I'm going to go back to the fit to height display here. And now I'm going to go back and hit demographics to get us back into our standard 12 lead ECG display, because I need to do this to sign off the report. So in signing off the report, I'm happy with what I have for the interpretation and measurements. I select the assigning physician, which would be myself, for example, Dr. Dave Jones, and then I'm going to hit confirm. And what this is going to do is it's going to take this report and it's going to update that report and resend that report back to the Allscripts Enterprise as a PDF document. And we'll take a look at that in a minute. But the first thing to note right here is after we've signed it off, we're presented with the HeartCentrix work list window. And here now you can see the report from 12:26 p.m. on May 20th. This now has a status of confirmed. So now we're done overreading that report. You would simply hit return, and you would hit refresh here. Now let's go back down to that report as if I was a referring physician or clinician. I just wanted to take a look at the final report. I would simply again click on that report, and it brings up the Allscripts scan document viewer. And now you can see the PDF document, but it's been updated from the preliminary report. It now contains some of the acronyms we entered. It has the free text that I entered here, and it also has an electronic signature saying that this test has been confirmed by Dr. Dave Jones. So anyway, after you've done the overread in the HeartCentrix viewer and editor, it actually captures those changes and then resubmits the updated final report back to the Allscripts Enterprise application and is presentable as a PDF document. Okay, that concludes the presentation on the Allscripts Enterprise HeartCentrix Care Center MD ECG integration solution. Thank you, and logging off for now.